Welcome to the future.
My name is Michelle Silver. I think now is a good time for us to rethink retirement.
How did you imagine spending the last few chapters of your life? We are living in remarkable times. On average, we're living longer now than we have in all of human history. Yet, we tend not to spend much time thinking about the implications of living a longer life. Now, looking around the room, I imagine that some of you are in early stages of your careers. You might be thinking, do I really need to think about retirement now? And my answer is yes. Whether you love the idea, or you hate the word retirement, or you haven't spent much time thinking about it, your perceptions about retirement and aging have an impact on how you treat mature adults and on how you will plan your careers and ultimately on how you will embrace your own aging. Right now, there are intense intergenerational tensions that come up when we talk about retirement. Because of my work, people often confront me to say, if so-and-so would just retire, our organization would be so much better off. And on the other hand, I hear from mature workers who feel unheard, undervalued, or who question the motivation or the desire for work-life balance among the younger generation. Recently, I watched a funny show where the host described retirement as like a typewriter. And translation, for those of you who might have had a typewriter like me in your life, the idea is that for the younger generation, retirement is obscure. It's obsolete. It's something that they're being burdened by from the older generation. And the idea is that we really ought to not have retirement be something that the younger generation of workers is burdened by. And retirement also shouldn't be a vehicle for exiling mature workers. So I want to share some history and some strategies about retirement, because ultimately, it's going to be up to you to decide whether and how you plan and advocate for your retirement. And I have to tell you, when I first went to make this slide, I typed the word retirement, and this image popped up. And I thought, wow, is that what we're supposed to think of when we think of retirement? An old man, slightly hunched over with a cane? And it's funny because when you look to ads or media images of retirement, typically you get a nice airbrushed photo, like this one, of a couple on the beach. And here, the idea of retirement is fantastic. No work, income still arriving, and all the time in the world. The problem is that both of these ideas are a bit out of date. So consider that for most of human history, life expectancy has been around 35 years old. And now, global life expectancy is over 70 years old. So in less than 200 years, we have more than doubled our life expectancy. Now, living longer has implications for every aspect of life and society. For one, living longer means that you'd better take extra good care of your teeth. Living longer also has implications for the ways that we structure our working lives. Now consider that original retirement plans were designed to kick in when the average worker was dead. Take the United States, for example. In 1935, Social Security was instituted for eligible workers when they turned 65. Now at that point, life expectancy was 61. So the average worker was already dead by the time he reached retirement. Now, fast forward to the 1970s, and there was a convergence where the average worker could expect to die right around the time that he retired. Now, the average man can expect to live an additional 15 years. And for women, it's more like 20 years. Now, another point to consider is that original retirement plans were designed around the model of men's work experiences. And yet, women tend to have different work experiences from men. Women are more likely at all stages in the life course to be caregivers. They're more likely to work part-time, to enter the workforce later, to exit earlier, to have lower salaries, and to have lower pensions if they receive any pension for their work. And yet, in 99% of the world, women live longer than men. Now, around the world, there's a range of different types of retirement plans and different ages of eligibility. But regardless of where you live, it's in all of our interest to see that women have equitable access to education and employment opportunities and equitable salaries and equitable pensions and workplace protections. Now that it's 2020, it's a good time to think and to rethink retirement so that we can provide greater assistance to people whose health has declined to a point that working no longer works. And it's a good time for us to create more sensitive and sophisticated ways to capture mature workers' knowledge and to retain and retrain and to support mature workers to the extent that the interest in continuing to work is mutually beneficial. So now I want to share some strategies with you based on hundreds of interviews I've done with people about retirement. And I want to share some specific examples from people who've retired from a range of different types of work. And the first strategy is that preparation for retirement should start early and often. And the first example that I want to share is Alan. Alan was a doctor who had married twice, and he had 5 children, 2 in his first marriage and 3 in his second. Alan claimed that his financial obligations as a provider for his family had prevented him from preparing for retirement mentally. And his drive to stay focused at work also got in the way. Unfortunately, Alan worked past his prime and was forced into retirement when he was in his 70s and his medical license was revoked, and he was at a point where he had no personal savings. Alan's story underscores the importance of financial planning and of taking the time and making the mental space to create a financial safety net for yourself. And another one of the most important takeaways is not just to prepare financially, but to prepare emotionally for retirement. Don't be afraid to focus on what makes you curious and on what brings you joy. Elizabeth was a CEO who had always thrived on being busy. maybe some of you can relate to that. Her work had always brought her a sense of purpose. And she explained that when she went through big work transitions, what helped her was focusing on what sparked joy. Now, I'm not going to give you a Marie Kondo lesson in how to fold, but I will echo her advice of simplifying, organizing, and asking yourself, what sparks joy? These ideas are important, not just to the rooms in your house, but to your finances, to your relationships, and to your work transitions. The third strategy that I want to share with you is to practice. Practicing is not just something that we must do as kids. Practicing is something that we must do at all stages in life in order to develop skills and habits. Elite athletes know better than anyone about the importance of practicing. They must possess incredible physical and mental energy, as well as the ability to focus on a singular goal and to practice in order to achieve that goal. Allison was an Olympic gymnast whose body was left racked with pain. And in her retirement, she had to adapt to the loss of community and companionship as she adapted to retirement's autonomy and independence. And what helped her was practicing something new. As she adapted and took on new work roles, she explained that practicing was something that helped her to get comfortable. Practicing was something that helped her get good. And the final strategy that I want to share with you is to recognize that work organizations can create and shape our identities. For some people, work is more than a source of income. Work can become a source of personal identity. For some people who've always taken their work seriously, or who feel like they were taken seriously because of the work they did, retirement can feel a lot like losing your grounding. Bob had worked for over 5 decades in the private sector. And when I interviewed him in his retirement, he described talking about his work, and when he talked about his work, he explained his heart was literally fluttering thinking about his work. In his retirement, he was constantly looking for some sort of sign that he was still needed and still desirable. For some people, for people whose work and personal identities are closely intertwined, retirement can feel a lot like heartbreak, especially when it feels like there's no chance of getting your foot back in the door. Now, I'm hoping that most of you have never seen a pink slip before. It's that piece of paper that lets you know you're being laid off. Unfortunately, evidence suggests that many people who enter into retirement do so and are forced to do so before they have a chance to choose retirement. I've interviewed people who've described feeling that they reached an expiration date based on assumptions that they were no longer capable of being productive or creative. It's important that we recognize that we can't always control the directions that work organizations move in, but we can control the assumptions that we make about people and ultimately about ourselves based on traits like age. So this is my image of the future, where intergenerational work environments flourish, where we invest time and resources in personal retirement saving strategies, and career transitions at all stages, where we are respectful of the environment and less wasteful, and where we are sustainable in our working lives, where exercise and healthy movement are built into our work environments so that we are healthy enough to work for as long as we want to. So now, I'm hoping that retirement feels a little bit less like an old man hunched over with a cane, and a bit less like a typewriter, and even a bit less like a day on the beach. Now that more of us are more likely to make it into later stages of adulthood, I'm hoping that you will take some time to imagine how you will spend the last few chapters of your life. Thank you.